Welcome to the 164 Forever podcast for newcomers. We focus on the 12 steps of recovery as outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, but we relate it to food because that is our particular compulsion, and we're glad you're here. We have a YouTube channel, which you might be listening to right now. We're also on Podbean. And we have a WhatsApp group that we created. So if you want to get connected to other OA fellows or get information about meetings and stuff, just look in the description below this podcast, wherever you are, if you're on YouTube or Podbean or even on our website, which is 164forever.com, where we have a few articles and we post the podcasts all there. It's sort of like a landing page for everything. And again, all that information is in the description below this podcast. My name is Carol. I'm a compulsive overeater. I'm in Los Angeles. And let's say hello to our fellows. Rebecca A.
Hiya, I'm Rebecca A. from London in the UK.
And Paul G.
Hi, I'm Paul G., recovered compulsive overeater in Huntington Beach, California, sunny Southern California.
Sunny for today. We might have some rain later this week. We'll see. In our last podcast, we talked about steps 6 and 7. So if you're interested in hearing what we had to say about that or any of our other recordings, just check the stream wherever you are right now. So this week, we're going to talk about steps 8 and 9. So steps 1 through 5 prepared us, and we saw that we were powerless, that there was a solution, and we made a decision. We identified things that were blocking us from our higher power, things that we had done wrong. We shared them with the sponsor, right? We got some additional input from that person. We saw our character defects clearly, and then we asked God to help remove our shortcomings. And now we're going to talk about 8 and 9. We're going to start setting about making restitution. It's not enough to admit that we have these shortcomings. We need to look at our lives and see how those shortcomings have affected other people, and we need to make that right when we can. So step 8 in the big book says that we made a list of all people that we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And step 9 says we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And I thought I might just read a little bit out of the big book before we start sharing as well. So on page 76 is where it starts talking about steps 8 and 9. And it says, now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our efforts to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning that we would go to any length for victory over alcohol. Probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel different about going to some of them on a diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. We might prejudice them. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order. But this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and other people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we have gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with our chin. Why lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message. But our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. He is going to be more interested in the demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. It may be he has done us more harm than we have done him, and though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit into our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feelings and expressing our regret. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply we tell him that We will never get over drinking or eating. You can replace it in your mind. We don't change the words of the big book when we're reading it. So simply we tell them that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own faults, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter. However, if someone does throw us out of his office, we have made our demonstration and done our part. It's water over the dam. Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors, telling them what we are trying to do. We make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think it or not, so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Arranging the best deal, we can let these people know we are sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors no matter how far we go down, how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. So, and it goes on and on. That's just, I mean, I read probably more than I needed to, but it continues, page 78, 79, and obviously read the big book, people. Read the big book. Find out what it means for you. But that is the basic discussion of 8 and 9. Yes, Rebecca?
I was just going to say, yeah, like it really goes in deep. And like the more you read, the more it answers your questions on this step. Like goes into different scenarios and gives the kind of rationale about it, like not leading with the chin and just kind of like taking a bit of humble pie, you know. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, Joe McHugh's book, you know, which I keep telling you guys about, you know, he talks about, and it is true, I felt this too. He says, you know, we're doing this for ourselves, not for them. Because I've heard people say, you know, we're making amends for them. We're doing it to make things right, so that they feel better. Well, my response to that would be, no, I think we're doing it for us, only because if we're really making amends to set other people right, to help them feel better, then I would need to personally call everyone I've ever met and say, what have I done to harm you and how can I make it right? Because I don't remember half the stuff. And the stuff that stands out to me may not stand out to them. And the stuff that stands out to them maybe didn't stand out to me. And all I can do is what stood out in my head, make those things right, right? I'm sure there are dozens or hundreds of people that feel I owe them an apology or an amends that doesn't even come into my head for whatever reason, whether you want to call it denial or I've just forgotten it. But then there's other things that just really stand out in my head and they keep me up at night. And then sometimes I'll talk to the person and they'll just say, yeah, I don't even remember that, you know? So what I'm trying to do is set myself right with my God so that I can go out and be helpful with other people. And it says so that we can look people in the eye, so we can go anywhere and not feel like ashamed that, oh my God, I'm at this party and there's that girl that I was so rude to before and I've never spoken to her since. And I hope she doesn't see me. And then you're like hiding. And for me, I would be hiding over by the food and just eating cookies and then sneak out the back door. Paul, what do you think?
Well, you know, this is one of those steps that keeps on giving, I think, and it's like a compendium of all of them up through. You know, it's preparing us, and I think, for example, step 2 is central to this. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, because I wouldn't do this stuff on my own. I needed a power greater than myself to be willing to do this stuff. And you know, I think of Dr. Bob, who got in his car and went around town in a weekend and made amends to people. Holy mackerel, you know, I'm still working on amends, you know, I'm grateful that the way the step is written is that, you know, and became willing, because there were certain ones that I wasn't willing to do at first. You know, I had an amends to a former daughter-in-law, And what I saw is not making the amends to her, not forgiving her and forgiving me, because it was both of us that, had done wrong, was standing in the way of me connecting with two of my grandchildren. And I had to make that amends to feel clean, to call her up and say, hey, I want to connect with the boys. And it took some willingness to set aside the resentment that I had, and and do that work. And the part that the step doesn't talk about is forgiveness. In my fifth step, I started to forgive myself for all the things that I had done wrong, all those things that showed up in the fourth column of my inventory. And central to being willing to do step 8 for me is, one, is forgiving myself enough to be willing to talk to you about how I've harmed you. And two is knowing that, there's a whole list of people that I had a resentment against that my sponsor said, you don't need to go over into their head to figure out if you've harmed them. If you can see there's harm that you did, then that's great. But I don't need to go over into your head to figure it out. And that really helped me a lot, because there's a lot of people on my resentment list that I didn't, I was just pissed off at them. They weren't following my script. And all there is to do is for me to share it with another person in step 5 and begin that forgiveness process. I forgive them for being human beings, just like I want forgiveness for me being a human being. And it's a really, the benefit, stepping into 9, the benefit is amazing. But I can say that I wasn't willing to do all my amends on day 1 when I read about step 8. And they've come over time. I just made the last principal payment on a loan that from a client that I'd stiffed a client on. And knowing that I had stiffed them, that stopped me from running for political office at one point in my career, because it's like, oh my gosh, that's going to come up. I was ashamed. I was like, oh my gosh. So now I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's done. So that's stepping into 9, but I had to become willing. And actually, as I made payments on that amends, I wavered. It's like, oh, I don't know. Can I really do this? Oh, I don't know, and I had to go back to my higher power and check in. So yeah, on its face, I was afraid to do this work. But once again, on the other side of the step, I'm so, so very grateful. And with that, I'll pass.
Yeah. It talks about, the willingness, which you brought up, which I think is so important, because I do feel like once I even like, so we'll talk a little bit about the list. So the list, they say, you made the list when you did your 4th step. It's the first column. I found that it's that list plus more, because even though something may not apply necessarily to my 4th step, there's things that I've done in the past that I just need to make right. So I used that first column. A few people I crossed off because I wasn't really in a men's situation. And then I added other companies, institutions, or people to the list as well. And then I heard someone say, and I have found this useful with sponsees, because there is like literally terror, just terror of like what you're going to do. And you're never going to get started, right? You're going to focus. What'll happen is I'm going to focus on the 3 or 4 amends that I'm not willing to make, and then I'm never going to make any amends. So what I found useful, and so I usually have my sponsees do it, I say, go and break your list of amends into 3 columns. The ones you owe, you're willing to make them. They're not easy, but they're easier. You can approach your mother, your brother, your sister, your whatever. And these ones you're going to just do, it's not going to kill you. And then the next column is those that you might be able to do in the future with some time. You're still praying for the willingness. And then those you're just absolutely never going to make. You're just not going to make. And I feel like that made me feel so good that I could write down amends that I was never going to make, that I was like, hell no. And then you start with the easiest and you work your way down. And by the what time you finish the easy amends, you're like, all right, that went pretty well. I'm ready to tackle some of these slightly harder amends. And then once you finish those amends, you can start tackling the bigger ones that you're just like, I am absolutely not willing to make. Like for me, I had to go to a large chain store and tell them that I had over the years shoplifted a bunch of merchandise, like just like my whole life, just like a candy bar, this or that, a chapstick, just like, I'll just put it on and put it in my purse, like whatever, and add up some money. And then I have to walk in while they're doing business and ask for a manager and explain that I've been stealing stuff over the years and that I want to make that right and give them money. And like that, I just absolutely felt like I had so much anxiety. Even like I can tell you right now, sitting in the parking lot, breathing at the steering wheel. Okay, I'm going to just walk in. Is there a manager? Like couldn't even talk, stumbling through my words. But the truth is that once I did it, oh my God, I could have flown to my car at the end of that. I could have just like, I don't even know if my feet touched the ground. I was just like, whoa, like this is fantastic. So those are the ones I found. And again, like you, Paula, I'm not totally done. And I'm pretty sure more men, I think of things all the time periodically that I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, because as you clear away the debris, you'll just be sitting there in bed, falling asleep in the middle of the night, or you'll wake up to go to the bathroom and you'll just go, oh, shoot. Damn it. And I can't even get back to sleep till I go write the name on a piece of paper, like, cause I'll remember that tomorrow, but then I'll just lay there in bed turning and I don't know, go write the name on a piece of paper. And then the other thing that I also like to tell sponsees is never make amends without discussing it with another recovered person. It doesn't have to be me. It's fine with me if you don't want to talk to me about it. Run it through the filter of another recovered person or 2 or 3. And the more difficult it is, the more emotion packed it is, I say run it through a few people. I would take amends and run them through several of our fellows, and I would get a vast people have very different opinions of how the amends should go and some worked for me and some didn't. Like what some people wanted me to do wouldn't work for me, and some people what they wanted me to do wouldn't work for me, but I knew it was the right thing to do, so I just did it. Like I certainly didn't want to go to the big conglomerate store who is already like raping America and give them money, like they don't need it. My mind would be like, they have insurance, it's like my mind was trying really hard to get out of doing it. But then when I did it, knew I had done the right thing, it just felt a lot better. Rebecca, you have anything to add right now? See you smiling.
Like you guys have covered it beautifully. When like something that helped, I love the thing about putting the amends in columns and being like, starting with the kind of easier, they're not easy, but starting with the more straightforward ones, the more readily available ones. And then, because as you do them, you realize I can do it, and I'm not doing this alone. I've got my higher power with me. I've done these previous steps, which have prepared me. So, I'm primed for it, even if I don't want to do it, I'm primed, I'm ready, it's going to happen. And it says what you beautifully read, Carol, now we need more action. And this is what 8 and 9 are all about. Action, action, action. Mm-hmm. And, just like what Paul said, it's a work of a lifetime, some take longer than others. Some, we've lost contact with the person, but like, what, in 5 years' time, I might get the opportunity and I'm going to do it. Some you write on a paper and you're sleeping at night and then it comes back into your mind and you're like, no, I need to kind of go and make it right. That's what we have these later steps for that will come to you next time. We've got 10 for that. But something that helped me a lot making this list, it's already made because it's from our inventory, and that's nice and easy. We just, do what Carol said. You take some are not appropriate, most are. We write them down, nothing else. I've heard this called like the Santa Claus step, making a list, checking it twice.
Nice. Very
it's
good.
kind of forward, just a
Ho,
list.
ho, ho.
'Tis the season. We're entering the season. So that's a good one. Yeah.
you celebrate, indeed. And like, yeah, I pray for the people on the list or the things on the list. And that kind of eased my way into it, you know, just wishing on the people on the list, everything I'd wish for myself, you know, and yeah, just knowing that I need to do this to get well. I need to do it to get well. And what was read earlier, you know, it's about getting free, and it's about, you know, yeah, fitting myself to be of maximum service to my higher power and others. And in order to do this, I need to make right, and I just have to get on with it, you know, and it might take me a long time, but I just need to be working on it. And the praying for the people on the list just helped me loosen up and kind of, it's going to be all right. Just,
Yeah, that's so great. That's really
Yeah.
great.
I often tell sponsees too, sorry, Paul, and I don't know if, and you guys can tell me if you disagree, but if they're really pissed at someone, I say, don't do that yet. Don't do that one. Do not go to somebody when you have a lot of heavy emotions. Continue to pray till you feel that willingness to me, because that's often when a lot of the resentment and everything kind of melts away, is once I feel that willingness. Because I just don't. And in the past, I grew up in a alcoholic family, and I had a biological father who would make amends all the time, and then like screw up more, and then come back and make more amends, and like he just really wasn't recovered at the time. And so what that kind of taught me was, like, make sure you're ready to make those amends, and that you're a changed person, or you're changing and in the process, and not just bitterly. I know it says we take the, bit in our teeth and we go to it, but I do think there is an art to it. And I do think that in particular, things that have gone really, really bad, and there's a lot of emotions, that you do need to maybe take a little more time till you can approach it calmly and rationally, because it does also talk about being able to just approach somebody on a calm, rational manner, and not coming to them with a ton of emotion. What were you going to say, Paul?
That one of the things that came up for me, and I think it's a good question, is what do you do for those people that are no longer with us? That they've left this earthly realm, and I had a number of people like that. I had my mother and father. I had my first wife. I had my son. I had my first mother-in-law and father-in-law, and I wrote it out. And strangely enough, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those people, actually 5 of them, were all in the same cemetery. And so I had written out some things, and I went to 4 of them. I knew exactly where the gravesite was, either the niche for their ashes. And I went to each one, and I read what was on my amends, and I said more. It was really quite a journey that afternoon. And I came home and I burned the notes that I had, and I truly felt that I had done my best to make an amends. And the biggest thing for me was that journey from living as a victim, which is, there's no power in living as a victim, right?
Right.
To really seeing how I had contributed to hanging on to the resentments, and the gift is that I just feel that I was able to clear so much garbage out of the relationship, and yet they're not here, right? So I think there's an opportunity to do things with people that are no longer with us, and that was a very powerful amends for me. That a lot of bang for the buck, and 5 in one place. So yeah.
Yeah. And also I think it's important, at least for me, to share in meetings, share with fellows on outreach calls, talk to other people about it, because there are people who have done this before you who are going to have great input. Like, obviously Paul would have some great input in making amends to somebody who's already passed on. And even for myself, I would share just so that I would have the courage to do it the next day. So, because you just told everyone you were going to go to the store tomorrow. So now you already told them next time they see you, you're going to have done it. So now you got to go do it. So, but just sharing, and then also just sharing your experience with doing it for other people that are even newer than you. You might still be new, but then you share about how it went, and other people are like, oh, thank you so much for talking about your amends, because I'm going to be doing that soon too. And it really does help when we talk about our step work in the meetings and what we're doing and how it's going. It really does help the other people and it always helped me when I heard people talking about, that's how I was able to do my step work, was listening to other people talk about how they had made amends to institutions and to businesses and corporations. For like, I listened to a bunch of people talk about on recorded podcasts about how they had make amends for their shoplifting and their stealing. And I was like, okay, so it's not just me. And I've also gotten a lot of different reactions from people. Like one woman in our meeting said like she was disgusted with me talking about that I had done it. And other people were like, I've done it too. I just never even wanted to talk about it, but thank you for talking about it. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay that lady doesn't even bother me that she was disgusted. In a weird way, I admire somebody who lives in a world where shoplifting is so horrible. Like, wow. I mean, because to me, it seemed like nothing, like who cared, like, so the fact that there are people that live in have a morality where that is really terrible. I was like, wow, well, good for her. Like, I'm glad. I mean, like, I'm glad there is a world. And then the best thing for me, at least for getting them done, was my sponsor gave me the 4 A's, which I don't know if you guys have heard me talk about them, and I think she might have gotten this just from like a book. I think there's like a 1-minute apology book or something for business or work. And the 4 A's are, the first A is you admit that you're wrong. You ask forgiveness. You ask, how can I make it right? And you ask, is there anything else I need to know? Or is there anything you want to tell me? And it gives me a script. And then I literally write out my exact script and I would email it to my sponsor or another recovered fellow. So it would look something like this. Debbie, well, first I would let her know what my approach will look like. I'm going to text or email this person and ask to set up a time to talk to them. So I would let her know exactly how I'm reaching out to the person. So I'll call them, I'll text them, I'll email, whatever it is. And then I'm going to arrange time to talk on the phone, or, because this was also early COVID, no one was vaccinated. So I did luck out in that I got to do some stuff on the phone. But then I have my script, my A's. I want to admit, so Debbie, I was terrible to you when you came to dinner at our house a few years ago. I was rude. There was no excuse for my behavior. It was totally inappropriate, right? So I've admitted my wrong. Can you ever forgive me? How can I make this right between us? Is there anything else you want to say to me? Anything else you think I should know, or anything maybe I don't remember that I've done to hurt your feelings that I'm just not thinking right now? And it really just opens up the conversation, and it gives me a script to focus on. I have these points to hit, these 4 points, boom, 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 boom. And it just, I didn't even know how to make an amends properly, and to let them speak, to let them say whatever they want to say, whether it's F you, you're such a D-bag, or whatever, or wow, I really appreciate you coming to me, but to let them have a moment. They were nice enough to set aside this time to talk to you. Stop being a narcissist, Carol, and now let them speak. You did your thing for your recovery. Now let them say anything if they want to. And what a beautiful way to end it. But yeah, those 4 A's I have found to be so helpful, and sponsees have also said that they were very helpful. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you were literally reading my mind. I was just writing down before you said there's a kind of formula to follow if you're stuck, and that's exactly it. And that last bit about it, where it's like, oh, how can I make it right? And is there anything else that you want to share with me, is a little bit scary. And that's the reason why, if we prime this with prayer and just reflection and coming to a place where you're ready and willing to make that amends, that it falls much better. Because yeah, you could have it that somebody does say, yeah, you're a D-bag and all of this stuff. And if you're not kind of in that space where actually, I do just want to be free and I do wish this person well, that can be quite hurtful. But when you are, it's just like, oh, thanks for the information. I know I've got a lot to work on. I've got a lot of defects. Thank you. You can, and it's handy to have a little bit of a format or structure. I sometimes say to my sponsees, I heard it on a podcast actually, it's like, write them out on little post-it cards, note cards, plan it out, you can practice with people. And then, once it's done, I fold it up, put it in my God box, and it's done.
Doesn't it feel so good? It feels so good, right? That's the thing, is this thing you're so terrified of is actually one of the most liberating feelings you can have. Like, you feel amazing once you've done something you've been putting off for so long. So I know from my own experience, I should say, that I felt horrified. I felt like I could never do some of these, that it just was not going to happen. But you feel so good that I remember thinking, God, you could almost get addicted to making amends to people. Like, you could almost, like, you need that zing, that like, woo, yeah, like, feeling of it. But it is
a rush. It is.
Yeah.
It's a rush.
It is a rush. And it's amazing. And it makes you feel like almost giddy to see how good most of the other, I won't say all, but most of the other people feel when you reach out to them and just say, I was terrible. And I didn't use the name of the person, but I was rude to somebody at a dinner party. And she's like, yeah, I didn't think much of it. I guess I just thought I'm not for everyone, And, and I was like, well, no, you're fine. That was really all me. That was really, really all me. That was me. It was me. And I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry. And you just get used to saying, I'm so sorry. And it was inappropriate. And there was also, I just didn't have the words or the language, but you'll get it. You'll get it. And when you share with other people, they'll help you with the right word. Sometimes I'll adjust a sponsee's wording and they'll go, oh, that's perfect, because we're so locked in our own feelings and emotions that it is hard for us to come up with the right words. And also our ego, man, my ego just wants to, word it as delicately to make me. And it's like, no, I was horrible and it was inappropriate. It was wrong in every way. And like, that's and there is something so liberating with not trying to justify your own baloney, just not trying to justify it anymore, and just go, no, man, I was awful. That was terrible. And I regret my behavior. I regret it. And and I'm so sorry. And can you forgive me? So it's
that's
a
beautiful.
language.
That's
right?
beautiful. The one that you don't know what you're going to get on the other side of the line. And perhaps that's the challenge of it, but it's also the extraordinary gift when you get something you could have never expected. When I made an amends to my daughter-in-law, she said, no, I can understand that you took that. I mean, I told her I had abandoned her and her 2 kids in favor of standing behind my son, right? And she said, I get it. I've been studying radical forgiveness. And I went, whoa, big surprise. And the other one that I really liked is I called again a former client, and I said, when I was in this transition between partnership and new job, I stiffed you on getting your work done. I don't even know what happened with it. And it was about 2 months, and I was out to breakfast with the family, and I get this call, and I had him in my contact list, thank goodness. And he says, no, your former partners took care of it, and I understand you were having some difficulties, and there's nothing there. And, I wasn't sure, do I need to call him again? Do I need to do this? So it's just another example that my higher power took care of it for me. And all I just needed to do was just be patient. I had done my footwork, and the rest clearly is not up to us. Whether they receive it, whether they forgive us, that's not up to me. It's just, it's so much of the program is I do the footwork and I let go of the results. And just as it's hard to describe the feeling, the boost that you get from doing this. And there's no calories, there's no aftertaste, there's no toxic response, and you come back down to normal. But boy, what a gift. It's like, keep on making those amends, keep getting those gifts. So that'll pass.
Yeah. And you just get better and better at them. And with that, I mean, I feel like we've, anymore, I say, go to your sponsor, obviously, get a sponsor, work the steps. You can't just make amends based on what we said right now. But hopefully if you are in this process, maybe something we said today was helpful for you. And that is our time for today. So if you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe. You can subscribe on Podbean or YouTube, and also visit our website, 164forever.com. And again, join that WhatsApp group. The information is below. And I just want to thank Rebecca and Paul for joining me once again. And we will be talking to you soon about steps 10 and 11. Thanks for listening.